Hello, and welcome back to the Outdoor Minimalist podcast. I'm your host, Meg Carney, and I'm an outdoor and environmental writer and author of the book Outdoor Minimalist: Waste Less Hiking, Camping, and Backpacking. Follow the link in the description to pre-order a copy of the book so you'll be the first to receive it on the date of September 1st, 2022. The Outdoor Minimalist podcast has a goal to give listeners actionable ways to waste less hiking, camping, backpacking, and more during every step of their process. Your impact outdoors starts long before you hit the trail and goes beyond leave no trace ethics. You'll learn how to identify sustainable outdoor brands, how to ask hard questions regarding sustainability, and begin to shift and evolve your mindset to integrate minimalism into all of your outdoor pursuits. In this episode of the Outdoor Minimalist podcast, we will be discussing a hot topic that any part of the sustainability and zero waste movement will be familiar with: single-use plastics. Since this is such a hot button issue and one so many consumers and manufacturers seem to care about, it felt right to introduce ways to eliminate single-use plastic use within the outdoor industry. I want to clarify that in this specific episode, we'll be discussing the use of plastics more on the production side of things and less on the consumer side. I'll have another interview lined up discussing ways to eliminate single-use packaging waste when backpacking, so be on the lookout for that episode. But for this one, we're thinking a little bit bigger picture, manufacturer side. Where is single-use plastic being eliminated there? So to help me expand on this topic, I had the pleasure of talking to Steven Reinhold. Steven has worked in the outdoor industry for over a decade. He began his outdoor career with Big City Mountaineers' Summit for Someone program, where he guided and recruited fundraising climbers whose efforts supported BCM's wilderness mentoring programs. Steven has been an ambassador for multiple outdoor brands and currently serves as Backpacker Magazine's official brand ambassador. He created an online sensation, #TrashTag, a social media-based cleanup effort which went viral in 2019 and has been used over 100 million times worldwide. Steven also founded the Appalachian Adventure Company, which has strong guiding roots, but has since grown into a formidable media, marketing, and consulting company, which works closely with organizations like Black Folks Camp 2, Leave No Trace, and Southern Environmental Law Center. All right, so thanks for joining me on the podcast today, Steven. I've been looking forward to connecting again and talking about the topic of single-use plastics. Before we jump into it, though, can you tell me a little bit more about how you got involved in outdoor recreation, your role in the outdoor industry, and kind of why the topic of single-use plastic waste has become such an important issue in your life?
Yeah, for sure, Meg. Thanks for having me. As you noted, my name is Steven Reinhold, and I've worked in the outdoor industry for a little bit over a decade now. I kind of began my career with an organization called Big City Mountaineers. I helped recruit and fundraise for their Summit for Someone program to help raise money for their wilderness mentoring trips that they took inner city kids on. I've had quite a few different roles within the outdoor industry. Like I said, that was kind of my entry point to that. And from that experience, I started up my own guiding company in North Carolina. It's called the Appalachian Adventure Company. That company has since transitioned over to a little bit more of a media marketing consulting type group and work with a few different organizations. But I think maybe one of the things that I kind of am most known for, or gained a little bit of acclaim for, was that I started the #TrashTag cleanup a few years ago. And that was a social media cleanup effort where I asked people to use their social media to pick up trash and post pictures of it. And it went viral in 2019 and kind of went all over the world and saw great success thanks to a lot of hard work and posts from a lot of different people. And that kind of leads me into, like you said, why I'm here, why I'm interested in waste created within the outdoor industry, in particular single-use plastics, and helping trying to eliminate those. But, I've always been a fan of the environment, always been a fan of outdoor recreation, and it's good to be able to finally kind of blend those two endeavors together.
Yeah, I think that they are very related. So I think it's really cool that you are kind of combining those two passions. And Steven and I first connected about the #TrashTag challenge, so that's kind of interesting. But would you be able to explain a little bit more about that challenge in particular and kind of how people can get involved and what it is and just what you do with it, basically?
Yeah, for sure. So in 2016, I was on a road trip from North Carolina out to California. We were in a place just north of Lone Pine, California, and I had a receipt from a pretty much a frivolous gear binge at a gear store. It blew out my window on this road trip, and I was devastated by it. And I immediately pledged to pick up 100 pieces of trash to atone for that accidental littering accident. And so I started doing so. I was continuing this road trip, going to a lot of different national parks in California, Idaho, Wyoming, and along the way I started picking up trash, and I realized there was always trash at these really, really, really pretty locations. All the famous overlooks, or even as you hiked out into the backcountry, right, you'd find a granola wrapper here and there, and it just kind of began to strike me how pervasive our trash problem was. If there were these pieces of trash way out in the backcountry, it was just a terrible occurrence, right? It kind of ruined the outdoor experience for me, and so I wanted to do something to kind of shift the tides a little bit, right? And about the time I had reached that 100th piece of trash, I was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I reached down to pick it up. I'll never forget. It was a Nature Valley granola bar on the side of a really pretty lake there, and I had the idea for trash tag, right? It's a very simple idea. Essentially, only changed 2 letters from hashtag, right, and turned it into trash tag. But the idea was to have other people, encourage them to pick up trash on their adventures and post it to their social media so they could encourage their friends and followers to do that. And the way I figured out how to link everybody together was through the hashtag trash tag. So it started off. It had an outdoor gear company, Yuko Gear, helped me partner with it the first couple years, and we set a goal to pick up 10,000 pieces of trash, and we did pretty well those first couple years. Got about maybe 30,000 pieces of trash or so in the first couple years, so it was a great success. But then in 2019, a man named Byron Roman in Arizona, he made a post of a young gentleman from Algeria who had picked up some trash, and that particular post went viral. Trash tag was connected to it, and in particular a trash tag challenge, and it went all over the world, kind of further than I ever had imagined. I think the big kind of audacious goal at the very start was to get a million people to pick up a trash tag, and I thought that would have been incredible. And to this day, the last I heard was that some folks that are actually able to run the numbers on such things estimated that there had been over 100 million uses of trash tag across the world. And so it's really cool. I think it's a gateway to conservation. It's about the easiest thing you can do, right? You can pick up a single piece of trash, post it to your social media, and encourage your friends and followers to do the same. It's really fun. Again, it's super easy, right? It's kind of like the first thing you can do, and once you make that step to pick up and post a trash tag, it's amazing how you kind of find yourself going down other ways to reduce your impact and find other ways to conserve and protect the planet.
Yeah, I really like that. It's positive use of social media, I would say. And yeah, like a gateway basically into other sustainable practices and a good conversation starter. If you're out hiking or something and someone sees you picking up trash, or even your social media followers kind of see that, it can be pretty inspiring. So that's really awesome.
For sure. I found so many people tell me, oh, that's great, I already pick up trash. I've always done that. I've always take a bag with me, and I think that's amazing. Like, there's so many people out there, and trash tag is just kind of the way for everybody to connect and inspire others to do that. Like you said, it's a positive movement on social media. I'd kind of grown a little bit tired of the time of seeing all kinds of different challenges, and I think it was like the Tide Pod challenge was hot at the time, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
So it was good to see the power, the positivity of social media being in use there. We don't quite get that very often, but I mean, you're literally connected to every single person in the world, and it's a good tool to use to connect and conserve, for sure.
So would you say that was kind of your launching point into melding sustainable practices in the outdoor industry for you, or when did that kind of begin?
Yes, certainly. That was definitely the launching point for that. Like I mentioned, I've been a kind of an athlete ambassador for a few different companies, and that's absolutely wonderful. But I think the outdoor industry in particular, it seems to care. In particular, it seems to care about the planet. I know we have a lot of issues, a lot of waste issues, single-use plastics, even just the materials that we use for all of our gear in general, right? We got a big issue with that. But it seems to be an industry that really cares. And that was kind of what always drew me to the outdoor industry. Has always been kind of a passionate person and wanted to pursue passionate endeavors. And so it's been wonderful. Recently I've started being able to work with Leave No Trace, organizations like National Cleanup Day, and finding a lot of these different organizations that are out there. And again, trash tag is just kind of like the most simple way to connect everybody through that. Right? I did not reinvent the wheel. I literally only changed 2 letters from hashtag. right? So everybody can recognize it. It's like what you call it, it's translated pretty much across all languages, and I think that's been one of the reasons it's been so well received and widespread.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think you're right that there are, in the community of the outdoor industry, there is a lot of people that care and they feel really galvanized towards sustainability and environmental change. But obviously, there's still some work to do, which is why you have to pick up trash sometimes when you're out hiking or paddling, whatever you're doing. But for this conversation, I don't necessarily want to focus on the consumer waste of things. I think it would be interesting to talk a little bit more about what you know regarding single-use plastics in manufacturing and that waste in the outdoor industry, because that's often very separate from the consumer.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting again, right? It's something that the consumer doesn't see very much, right? It's not forward facing, right? So essentially, every piece of gear that you've ever bought was packaged in a single use poly bag. If you get those items delivered online, they're going to come in that very thin plastic bag. But even if you shop at a retail store, right, they received those pieces of gear in a very thin poly bag, right? And so that in particular is a huge problem, right? I mean, you think about the strange juxtaposition there of this gear that's made to withstand any and everything, right? That you're going to beat up and go rock climbing in and roll around in the dirt in. But for some reason, it has to be shipped in a thin poly bag that's very, very difficult to recycle. Up until recently, it wasn't even an option. And so that was kind of one of those dirty things that was pushed to the side. And I remember seeing a picture in particular. It was from a company named Prana, and they had received a huge shipment at one of their stores, and they went and stocked everything, and they sent the picture to one of their higher ups and said, "What do you expect us to do with all of this plastic?" And it was really one of those like just poignant moments, right? This like 10-foot high pile of plastic in the back of the store there, and the employees left wondering what they could do with it, right? And if you imagine the size of the outdoor industry, right, we're approaching like a $1 trillion industry. There's hundreds of millions of people all over the world that are into the adventure and outdoor lifestyle, right? And so think about how many like billions, if not trillions, of these poly bags have been created through essentially our want to go on adventures, right? So it's this very, very strange juxtaposition again of like an industry that really prides itself on being eco-friendly. That's very, very forward-facing, right? Everybody's always bragging about and talking about whatever initiatives they're pushing at the time, how they're trying to be more and more eco-friendly. And we have this really kind of looming but untold problem in the background with these poly bags. And so one of the neat things that I really, really like to talk about is that a few years ago in 2019, good friend and person I refer to as my woman-tor, Kristen Hostetter, she started something called the Plastic Impact Alliance with her company, the Outside Business Journal. And this Plastic Impact Alliance, it started out as a way to get essentially organizations to not use any single-use plastics at the 2019 Outdoor Retailer Show. There was always problem of using plastic water bottles, straws. All the items came in these poly bags, right? And so she got together, started a coalition. It started out with just a few companies, but they signed this Plastic Impact Promise and decided to not use any single-use plastics at this trade show. Kind of blossomed, right? The idea took off. Essentially the realization of some of the problems that we had and that we could possibly get together and kind of crowdsource and share information about how to eliminate these poly bags from the manufacturing stream there. It kind of came together. Now it's blossomed. Right now it's a coalition of over 420 organizations and companies that have signed this, that have pledged to reduce or eliminate single-use plastic from their entire corporation, right? And I think that's amazing. It's a great way to show kind of like the power of positivity again, right? Of how connected we are in this industry, that everybody can kind of share their ways. So for example, within that Plastic Impact Alliance, organizations like Prana are in there, and Prana has decided to completely eliminate single-use plastics from their entire company, right? And so they share that information with the other companies in the alliance. Everybody's kind of able to feed off that energy, feed off of those ideas. They have a super cool program going on right now in Boulder, Colorado, and on Pearl Street, which if you're familiar with Boulder, Colorado, Pearl Street's kind of like the outdoor mall, and it's got all the really cool outdoorsy shops, right? Your Patagonia, Himalaya, Stio, all the kind of the staples there, right? And they have gotten together and started this program called the Eco Cycle, where they go around and they actually collect all of the poly bags from all 10 of these different organizations on Pearl Street in Boulder. They take them to Outside Inc., which is the headquarters. It's the media owner of Outside Business Journal, which helped start the Plastic Impact Alliance. And so they're bringing all these poly bags in. This EcoCycle company is recycling the poly bags. They're turning them into Trex decking, which is kind of like an alternative to wood decking for your house, which is, super cool initiative there. But they're able to kind of measure how many poly bags they have. They're able to create a model that could be scaled, that could also be replicated in other areas. And again, they're really doing this kind of to raise awareness to the amount of poly bags that we have in the marketing or in the merchandise stream within the outdoor industry. And again, I think that's a super important thing, because up until 2 or 3 years ago, right before I joined the Plastic Impact Alliance with my company, the Appalachian Adventure Company, that never occurred to me, right? I would order a Patagonia jacket that was, environmentally friendly. It was made out of recycled material. It was, dyed properly, all these things. But then it would come in a plastic bag that I would just discard and throw away, even though it said recycle on it, because I knew there was nowhere around here that would recycle that, right? Essentially, those plastic bags would actually wreak havoc within the current recycling stream, because it can cause damage to a lot of the machinery and kind of gom those up. So that thought never occurred to me, right? It was just something that was kind of out of sight, out of mind. But now that I think about it, like somewhere out there, again, there's like billions, if not trillions, of these poly bags that our jackets, our backpacks, our sleeping bags, our tents, have come in collectively over the years. And that's kind of hard to stomach. Again, from an industry that prides itself on being environmentally friendly, it prides itself on protecting the places that we play, so to speak. So it's important for me to help bring that to light, because so many times I think forward-facing in the outdoor industry, we protect public lands, right? But it doesn't do us much good. It's very narrow-sighted, right, to protect Yosemite, but like to destroy Vietnam through our consumption, right? Or whatever other country you want to insert there that's producing and manufacturing a lot of those hard goods for the outdoor industry, right? So it needs to not just be thought of as, from a land conservation standpoint. It needs to be from our entire impact. And honestly, that's one of the reasons I'm so excited that you kind of started the outdoor minimalist mindset and the theory behind that, right? Because, I mean, that impact could be, you could translate that to so many things, right? Let's talk about like boil in a bag meals, right? Dehydrated meals that come in those Mylar bags that are essentially around forever, right? Well, if you go on a cool backpacking trip that's three nights long and you eat 10 meals out of those bags, there's 10 pieces of trash that are going to be around essentially infinitely, right? Way past your lifetime. And this impact that you have created to go out and just enjoy the outdoors, right? And again, it's very easy to kind of be out of sight, out of mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
To just assume that's an impact. But I don't know. It interests me to think of possibly like a zero impact backpacking trip. How cool would that be, right?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in everything that
well
you've
said.
kind of just said.
Sorry, I ramble there. That's my name's Ramblin' Reinhold, as you can tell there.
Oh, brilliant. That is such a good nickname. But I kind of want to reel it in for a second here.
All right.
And I think, there's a lot of validity, obviously, to everything that you're saying. And something that kind of is sticking out to me is kind of like, that out of sight, out of mind thing. But when we're talking about any type of consumer good or any type of plastic, anything that is labeled that it can be recycled. So oftentimes if you receive a package, it'll have a little recycling symbol on there. But with the poly bags, like you're saying, a lot of consumers aren't even aware quite yet that can't be recycled in the recycling facility that they would try to send it to. So this initiative kind of like removes that. And something that I'm kind of wondering, because I did some research with the Plastic Impact Alliance, but it seems like it would be easier to remove that direct to consumer packaging versus from the manufacturer packaging to the company. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And, I think that's certainly part of that alliance, right? It's again, it's essentially a way to create this alliance and figure out ways to reduce it on all steps, right? I think reducing it from the manufacturers is key, but on there as well, several companies have removed those poly bags from their packaging to consumers. They've started things like rolling their T-shirts, tying them with twine, switching to kind of like more easily recycled craft papers. That Prana company in particular was a new product, I believe, called glassine paper. It was a new product I hadn't seen before, but it's essentially just a more easily recycled kind of weatherproof type of bag that's paper based. But again, it's like you said, there's a lot to unpackage there, right? I mean, even the impact of getting something shipped as opposed to getting it from your local gear store, right? But to me, in anything, like if you're trying, you're winning, right? It's like virtually impossible to leave no trace completely as you can't. But if you're trying, you're winning, right? If you're trying to kind of like self-analyze and see if you can take things out of your impact and make it just a little better, then I think you're winning there.
Yeah, that's why I always struggle with the terminology of zero waste, because really all we can do is minimize our waste or minimize our impact, and that's kind of what this alliance appears to be doing. Other than those poly bags, which obviously are a large issue even outside of the outdoor industry, are there other types of plastic that they're kind of focusing on or trying to remove?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the heart of it again was to reduce single-use plastic at retailer shows in the outdoor industry. For those of you familiar or not familiar with the outdoor industry, right? There's several shows per year. One of the main ones is the Outdoor Retailer. Historically, it was in Salt Lake City. It's since moved to Denver. But at those trade shows, people would get bottles of water. They would have plastic cups for happy hours. Just these little things that would add up, right? And so the original theory of it was to completely reduce these single-use plastics from the Outdoor Retailer show and these other retail shows. And so at those shows, they've started companies that are within the alliance. They host water refill stations. They give access to very affordable, reusable water bottles. And so that's really cool to me because it's very forward-facing, right? It's got you got the Plastic Impact Alliance logo out there, and it lets you see that people are attempting to do this, right? It's not that big of a collective dent in the problem. They might get 500 or 1,000 water bottles saved per show, but being forward-facing like that and having everybody seeing that and inspiring them to think, well, what is it within my life or within my company that I could do to help remove some of this plastic, and particularly single-use plastic. So again, it's as you can tell, right? Like based on like the Trash Tag Project, I'm really big into inspiring others for them to act on their own behalf, right? I think that's huge because I always tell people to dream big because their idea of like eliminating waste might be thousands of times more complex and out there than my simple idea of removing just a poly bag is. So that's kind of again the biggest thing is to just get them through the gateway and get them on the team that's trying to reduce waste on the front end.
Yeah, and oftentimes I think it can feel kind of hopeless as like an individual change in today's era of sustainability and environmental chaos. But that conversation piece I think is really important, and it seems like this new alliance that is kind of forming in the outdoor industry is not only really effective, but it also is a good conversation starter for people in the industry to kind of look really critically at some of the small items that would like pile up and the smaller things that are easier to change. Instead of having to change everything all at once, it kind of like builds on itself.
Yes, for sure. These little innovations here and there, greatly help. I mean, earlier I mentioned, like the dehydrated meals and the bags that those historically come in, right? In particular, there's a company out right now, Evergreen Adventure Foods, that is kind of making its mark by using 100% biodegradable bags for that. They've kind of, figured out some new technology that allows the food to stay good and allows the bag to be biodegradable, and I think that's huge, right? Essentially, they've eliminated their impact from that organization for their entire future, which is incredible, right? Some other ones that come to mind, I mentioned this one to you before, was No-So Patches. Super cool company, right? They allow you to kind of repair your gear, your tents, your backpacks, your clothes, your puffies, all of that stuff. But they make these like really cool, customizable patches that add a whole lot of style to your gear. But I mean, think about this, right? If we change, what they're doing essentially is making it cool to have gear that is repaired, right? You kind of collectively shift this mindset of things having to be brand new and shiny to taking it being like a point of pride to have some scratches and some cuts in your clothing, right? And maybe repaired with a cool patch. So just all these little things add up. Again, I think in particular the outdoor industry is a trendsetter, right? Everybody loves how cool it is to be a part of the outdoor lifestyle, right? It's one of the if you look on social media, it's everywhere, right? I mean, it's absolutely everywhere, and so it's definitely a trendsetter. So when little companies or big companies make these moves, people see that, right? And it's becomes like a trickle down effect. And yeah, I think there's a lot of good initiatives, a lot of good different organizations, a lot of good products out there. But just being able to get those out to everybody and educate everybody on them is key.
Yeah, one thing that I think is really interesting about this plastic alliance is that it seems to be a lot of big names that are kind of
Mm-hmm.
jumping into it, and I think that's really impactful because it seems like in a lot of my research and in writing the Outdoor Minimalist book, I noticed that sometimes it seemed like smaller companies were doing a lot of the heavy lifting when it came to sustainable practices. So, looking at some of these larger companies like Prada and Patagonia that are kind of like paving the way for smaller companies and giving them like new options and
Mm-hmm.
new packaging material ideas and making the consumer think more critically because they have the bandwidth to market sustainability, whereas a smaller company wouldn't necessarily be able to market it as widely. And so I think that that is
Yeah,
very
for sure, for
impactful.
sure.
So, what are some other resources that you're aware of in your experience in the outdoor industry? Because you're kind of involved in a lot of different ways. Do you know, you mentioned a few other companies that are kind of creating new innovations like the no-sew patches, but are there other resources out there that you can think of for other smaller companies to kind of start working on?
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, there's all kinds of stuff out there going on. One of the I guess this would be more of a consumer way for that. But one of the coolest things I've heard of recently is a group out of Colorado called Rerouted. Actually, I recently did a podcast with them as well. But they're making it super easy to essentially connect people that want to sell their used gear. And I think that's super cool. And it creates a little bit more of a circular economy. Again, I think it adds an allure to have a jacket or a tent that's got a story with it. So I think that's super cool. There's the kind of like the bigger ones like Reprieve and Recover that are making their recycled fabrics from polyesters and from plastics, which are I think that's pretty cool. I do know that there's gosh, I can name like three or four different companies that use that material so that so that their clothing is recycled. So I think that's a good way to look at it. That somebody provides a material or provides a product that other companies can use. That a lot of folks will use those like more eco-friendly options if they are available. And it kind of honestly, what you said earlier was brilliant about being consumer driven, right? Because it is this big huge thing, right? You look at those a company like Patagonia, right, and how its consumers and its constituency just like demand products that are a little bit better, right, that take care of the environment or don't have as big of an impact on it, and so that's certainly driven that company, and then obviously that company, driven by Yvon Chouinard, has helped drive the consumers by giving them options to get more eco-friendly products. So it continues to drive each other, but I'm a firm believer that consumers control the market, and that's like that's just the number one thing, right? So you mentioned earlier it's really hard to think, well, what can I do as an individual, and you might not ever do something that's going to be kind of like heard around the world a little bit, right? The trash tag thing was a very fortunate and lucky, just quite honestly lucky endeavor that happened to go so far, right? So don't aim to do that, but just aim to to make an impact or to reduce your impact on your end, and that goes a long way. Because collectively, when all of us are doing that stuff, like collectively, all of us are buying products that we know are environmentally friendly. That the company we know that the company focuses on that because we are tied into their marketing, right? And so just doing that and like voting with your dollar essentially is pretty big.
Yeah, that collective effort is a huge deal. And when you can kind of get into that mindset, I think it kind of does help shape your daily behaviors and your consumption patterns. But I'm also really glad that you brought up in this episode talking about single use plastics the idea of buying used gear or even I guess you didn't bring this up, but renting gear too is also an option, because when you buy used gear, you're already skipping the need of that single-use plastic, and you're also skipping the need for any virgin materials to be pulled out. So that is often a more sustainable pattern to have versus like always opting to buy something brand new, because you're eliminating single use along the way then.
Yeah, and again, that's kind of one of those dirty little secrets about the outdoor industry, right? Like every single year, the gear's got to get just a little bit better, right? A little more waterproof, or like tenth of an ounce lighter, and right, so we have to like constantly get this, what's new, what's next, right? And that creates a lot of an impact. It's I don't guess that's ever going to stop, right? People are always going to want what's new, the best technology. But just like you were saying, right? If we can create an outlet to easily get these items to folks that maybe want to just go camping for the first time, right? And they don't need a $20,000 tent, right? They just want a tarp or an easy tent, and being able to create these avenues for people to get that to each other. And like you said, renting too. That's huge. Imagine this in your head, right? Imagine how many tents and sleeping bags are sitting in closets, right? Of people that were like, we're gonna go camping, and they went camping and they didn't necessarily like it, and so it just sits there forever, right? Like I think that story is probably repeated millions of times across the world. And one other thing I've noticed too through the trash tag project is cheap gear tends to be the gear that's like left behind. There's one particular brand I want to reach out to them, honestly. I swear I'm going to do this one day, that I'm going to Ozark Trail. It's like the Walmart brand. I see that stuff left more than anything, right? And I feel like so people treat it like a single-use camping item, which is terrible, right? But here's the thing, right? If that company, to me, right, if I work for that company and I'm in the marketing department, it's like people think our gear is trash. They literally leave it behind, right? So what can I do to change that? Well, maybe on the packaging, I should put, do not leave this gear behind. Make sure you pack in what you pack out right, or like educate folks about protecting the outdoors. Because again, as a company, how terrible does it look for your gear to be the one that's left behind at campsites, right? Like it's a disposable thing. But anyways, I digress there, but that's an interesting thought to me, right? Of like, again, how a consumer could possibly help drive the market and change the company by just letting them know what's going on with their stuff.
That is really interesting to think about, that it would be treated as disposable. I guess I haven't necessarily seen that as often, but maybe I'm not going into like as crowded of spaces or something.
Well,
I don't know.
Things are different in different places, right? I'm in the southeast, and we have a particular constituency, I guess, might shop at Walmart, and we get a lot of easy access places, and that just seems to be the thing, right? I can't tell you how many times I've picked up like entire camping setups, and somebody maybe got bad weather in the middle of the night and decided to bail, but it just always seems to. I don't see people leaving behind Patagonia puffies or Hilleberg tents.
Yeah, that's true.
Or anything like that, right?
Yeah, I guess if I'm looking back to the time that I lived in North Carolina, everywhere you go, like everything is a little more compact than it would be in the West. Like there's less wide open spaces. Like still obviously wild spaces to explore, but it seems like there's like more people using them.
This is very, very true.
But other than kind of some of the things that we already talked about, like poly bags or the food bags you're talking about, are there any other big waste streams that you see in the outdoor industry? It's a huge question, so like don't feel obligated to like think of every single one, but maybe some more related to single-use items.
Well, I think a lot of them become single-use. People don't really intend on it, but honestly, the overland community, I am very interested by the insatiable need to add gear and items and stuff to a camping setup, right? I'm kind of amazed sometimes by just how much stuff people can pack into a van. And, it's interesting. I guess if you're living out of the van, that's one thing, but like, if you're just traveling around, that's really creating quite the impact there, right? To have this adventure vehicle with all these different things, to be, scooting around from Instagram place to Instagram place, taking pictures and things of that nature. So I think that could certainly be an interesting topic to think about, right? Of, what all do we actually need for adventure? And again, that just goes back to like these inherent kind of like problems within the outdoor industry of, I mean, quite honestly, you don't really need more than a sleeping bag and a tarp to camp, right? I mean, that quite literally, that's about all you need, right? But we continuously talk ourselves into needing so many different things, and certainly it adds up a little bit.
Yeah, it is really interesting to think about how different sectors of the outdoor industry maybe handle waste streams or marketing and things like that. And the overland community is not one that I'm very familiar with. I should research more about it and learn more about it, definitely.
Yeah, I think the RV industry too. RVs aren't particularly known to last forever, right? So to me that's one of the big things. If you look into the design of a product and you can design it to last forever, I think that's huge. I recently started working with a company called Limmer Boots, and they make these incredible leather boots, right? And so you say leather, people might think, oh, that's not environmentally friendly. Well, in actuality, this company, right, these boots, some people have them last for like 30 plus years because one, they're very, very durable. Two, they are resolable, right? So you can put a new sole on it when it wears out. So, if you start to think about it, one pair of boots for 30 years as opposed to one pair of boots per year for 30 years, right? If you think about that impact, you put a pile of like 30 pairs of boots made from all these textiles next to one pair of leather boots. It's something to think about, right? Because essentially designing a product that will last forever is about the most eco-friendly thing that any company can do.
Yeah, instead of planning in any type of obsolescence, you want to encourage that repairability and the durability, but it also is important to teach the consumer how to take care of that item. Like, not everyone knows how to care for a leather boot,
Certainly.
So it maybe wouldn't last as long.
Certainly.
Well, I feel like we kind of unpacked a lot of interesting ideas and topics in this episode. So with that, are there ways that listeners can find you and the Appalachian Adventure Company?
Yeah, for sure. Instagram's my main jam right now. And as you may have guessed, like I said, my personal handle is Ramblin' Reinhold, because I tend to ramble on when I talk.
Oh, is that actually your Instagram handle?
It literally is, yeah.
Okay.
So you can go there, and then the Appalachian Adventure Company on Instagram too. That's kind of the company I kind of started to not just be an individual in the outdoor industry, to be an organization and have a little bit more of a professional side of things. And now I've got a few close friends that work with me, so that's really, really cool organization and good way to follow along.
That's awesome. And I'll link all of that in the episode description, as well as some information about the Plastic Impact Alliance and how you can join their efforts as well. So thanks for taking the time to chat today, Steven. It was really fun.
Awesome, Meg. I really appreciate you. Proud of what you're doing, and best of luck with Outdoor Minimalist.
I just want to say thank you again to Steven for coming on the show and rambling away with me today. So I hope that you enjoyed the conversation, because I had a lot of fun. I'm going to be linking a few of the resources that Steven mentioned in the episode notes. So if any of those companies piqued your interest, or you want to learn more about the Plastic Impact Alliance that we discussed, then check those out there. And until next time, thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, let me know. Leave a review and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can still find me on Instagram at outdoor.minimalist.book. Follow there for daily updates, other educational resources, and to help build an outdoor community with the shared goal to create a better outdoor space as we recreate.